Well, hello everyone, and welcome to EllieMD's educational series. I'm Honey Sagari, founder and CEO of EllieMD, and we're so excited to have you with us as we continue our mission to help people live longer, healthier lives. At EllieMD, we believe in empowering individuals through education, community, and innovative healthcare solutions for vibrant living. Today, we're turning up the heat. An intimacy expert to millions, she is a champion and advocate for all those who desire intimacy and passion. She's created hundreds of techniques that transform having sex into making love and is the world's most well-respected sexual biohacker. Meet Susan Bratton, everyone, the world-renowned sex specialist to millions and one of the leading voices in the realm of sexual wellness and vitality. As a sexual biohacker and advocate for lifelong passion, Susan has created hundreds of transformative techniques to turn having sex into an art of making love. She's the co-founder and CEO of Personal Life Media, the powerhouse behind the Better Love brand, where she offers heart-connected lovemaking techniques, bedroom communication skills, and sexual regenerative therapies. Susan works tirelessly to increase people's sex span. That is how long they can enjoy vitality and intimacy and connection. She's a sought-after speaker, often seen on ABC, CBS, the CW, NBC, and is the #1 downloaded podcast guest in her field. A best-selling author of 44 books and programs. Wow, Susan. Susan has spent over 2 decades empowering millions to master pleasure techniques, enhance bedroom communication, and unlock their full sexual potential. Today, Susan joins us to share her expertise on how extending your sex span increases your health span, hormones' impact on libido and arousal, her own personal PT-141 arousal experience, and the top 3 intimate wellness pleasure tools. Susan, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so excited to have you. Thank you for
Oh,
being
hon, it's so good to be here. My pleasure. And thank you so much for having me to talk about things like sex span and peptides and ageless sexuality. It's interesting. One of the things that you'll find if you look at a lot of longitudinal research is that people who maintain their intimate pleasure and connection live a longer, healthier, and definitely happier life. So, whenever I can get in front of a group of people who value their intimate pleasure and connection, I am thrilled because I just want to live to 100 and be sexually active until 100. And I see no reason why I can't. I'm 63 and having the best sex of my life. So it keeps getting better your whole life long if you keep it in good shape. And so happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here. We love having you. I mean, this is a community we build around educating, so it's really special having you here. But we
Mhm.
know that you are the intimacy expert. Before we get into all the juicy details, can you share with us what inspired you to get into this and make a career out of this? And what exactly is sexual biohacking? Can you share with us?
Yes, sure. Of course. My pleasure. When I was 42, I had a successful career and I was married for about a dozen years. I'd gotten married at 30. And my intimacy with my husband had waned because it wasn't satisfying for me. I hadn't learned how to have orgasms from intercourse. And so I just stopped wanting it after 12 years. And my poor husband, he didn't stop wanting it. And so we said, well, let's try to figure out what we're doing and how we can do it better so that it's mutually pleasurable because I wanted to have good intimate connection. It just wasn't satisfying me. We went to therapists and we went to intimacy workshops. And those intimacy workshops really taught us very quickly that sex is a learned skill that takes practice and information, that the body's operating system works very specific ways, that um, the techniques are repeatable across our population of humanity. And that just made me want to bring that to the internet. Most people that are in the business of sexuality they are sexologists, they're therapists. So what they do is they sit with a client and they kind of unwind issues and solve problems. But I'm kind of the other side of that coin, where my title is Intimacy Expert to Millions, the 44 books and programs that I've published, 34 of which I've written, 10 of which are the work of my mentors who have techniques and constructs that are learnable, sensual, pleasuring skills. And what I do is I write passionate lovemaking techniques, bedroom communication skills, and I teach people how to keep your genitals in good working order so that you can extend your sex span, which extends your health span. So I'm kind of the plus up. I'm writing the sexy techniques and the bedroom communication and things like that.
Oh, I love it. So, Susan, maybe other people may not know how I met you. I was at APRM a couple years ago, and we're coming on, I think it was 3 years ago. We're coming on APRM tomorrow. It starts again. And I see
Yeah.
this gorgeous, beautiful blonde.
Oh,
Like, who is she? And I come and I approach you and I have this conversation with you and you told me your age and I was just blown away. I was like, "Okay, wow, I thought you were in your early 40s. You look so gorgeous and
thank
beautiful.
you.
Can you tell us what your key to longevity and beauty and vitality? Can you share it with us, your secrets?"
Sure. It's a combination of things. Sexual biohacking is really what I do, and longevity, biohacking and sexual biohacking. Biohacking came from the world of longevity. And it's this notion that we actually have control over our health span, that it's not enough to increase our lifespan. We don't want to live longer if we're not going to be healthy. Let's live a longer, healthier, happier life. And my area of expertise for teaching other people is in the area of sexual biohacking, which is you can think about it like a continuum where you start with regenerative therapies. Often what you're doing is you're essentially reversing the atrophy of aging, which is everything from loss of nitric oxide, loss of hormones, atrophying of the tissue, loss of lubrication, loss of erectile function, loss of sensation, all of these kinds of things. It includes incontinence, it includes loss of desire, loss of libido, difficulty with arousal. All of these things can diminish over time. But you can pretty much fix all of those things with techniques, treatments, practices, strategies. And so what sexual biohacking is first, it's the regenerative therapy part of the spectrum. And that is, let's fix what's broken. But then you can go beyond that to take yourself to higher levels of performance. Let's look at it that way. Optimizing your mind body connection to be even better than you would have had you just gotten back to healthy. And those kinds of things are male enhancement, female enhancement in natural ways, as well as things like orgasmic cross training, because the body can have over 20 kinds of orgasmic pleasure, locations to touch, techniques to use, objects of desire. So, one of the things that I talk a lot about is orgasmic activation, where we might have one path to pleasure, one path to climax, but there are myriad paths, and there's ways to activate and enliven and awaken all of your tissue so that it gets more signals to your brain, which we all have heard your brain is your biggest sex organ, but why? The
Mhm.
reason that it isn't just the emotional aspects of how you feel, which is really in the domain of desire. Do I feel sexy? Do I have an attraction to my partner? It's also physiologic, where there's a lot to think about when you think about your libido, which is your sex drive, your health, the physical health of your body. you think, okay, oh, my libido's low because my hormones are off. Well, that's part of it. But vascularization, blood flow, is an equal partner in the bed of great sex. And we lose blood flow and the ability to push that blood around in our body. That shrinks our genitals. When we get blood flow back, we can activate more tissue when that tissue is flush with blood, and women have as much erectile tissue in our vulvas as our male body partners do in their penis. And I'd love to talk more about that if you'd like to. But when we are able to get the blood in and get that activated and get that tissue plumped up, really juicy, then it has more surface area that sends more signals to the brain. And you might start off with those signals being attenuated, that you might touch a part of your body and say, oh, I feel pain, or it hurts, I feel shame, or it feels numb, I can't really feel it. You can change that through loving touch to pleasure. And then when it's plump and it's activated and the blood is flowing and the hormones are coursing through your body, it's sending massive amounts of signals to your brain, and your brain's going, oh, wow, this feels good. And then you're having even better orgasmic pleasure. And especially when you do that in the evening before bed and you oxygenate your brain and you lower your cortisol by increasing your oxytocin, you are getting a better night's sleep, more recovery, waking up fresher. These are just some of the things that happen when you have pleasurable, satisfying lovemaking. So that's what sexual regenerative therapy all the way to sexual biohacking is. Things, everything from using nitric oxide supplementation, vacuum erection device, using peptides, using acoustic wave like Gaines wave technologies, PRP, exosomes, stem cells. All of these things can be applied to your intimate wellness.
So before we do a deep dive on, all the techniques and sexual biohacking, can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on what causes low libido, whether it's in your younger years or as you get older, or is it inevitable? Will everyone experience lower libido as they get older? Can you share with us what causes it?
It's multifactorial. Of course, like everything, every person is a, perfect little unique snowflake with entirely different experiences in nature and nurture. Everything from genetic SNPs to lack of information when they were raised to traumas, et cetera, can all be cofactors in loss of libido. One of the things that I like to do is I like to describe the difference between libido, desire, and arousal, because we use the words interchangeably, but they're actually quite different. And it gives you a good construct to think about your overall sexual wellness. Libido is your body. It's your lust for life. It's the hormones, the blood flow, the atrophy, all of those kinds of things. The pain, the shame, the numb, all of that stuff. And when you don't feel well, you don't have a libido. So low libido is often something that has been caused either by the two most common issues are poor health or unsatisfying sexual experiences. You don't want sex if it's not any good. If it's good, you want it. And in our country, we are an extremely sexually censored country, not for pornography. That's completely available. But, and in the media, the way that they show sex is it's not female pleasure oriented. It doesn't show you what to do. So pretty much everybody's kind of the blind leading the blind in the bedroom because people like me get censored, but pornography, you can just go watch all you want. And Time Magazine recently did an article about pornography where there was a study they quoted that said that they sampled 340 different random clips of pornography, and 96% of it showed degrading acts to women. And the problem is that, especially our kids, they're growing up thinking this is what sex is because they literally don't see heart-connected, passionate, conscious love making. So we do come from a deficit in that area where fear, lack of knowledge creates a lot of fear. Add to that all of the kind of repressive and, pornographic imagery that we see, and it can make us afraid to have sex. It can make us afraid, or it can make us have unsatisfying sex. So you've got libido, you've got desire, and desire is the emotional body. That is, how do I feel about myself? And often, especially women, we have body image issues because we're estrogen dominant. Our male partners are testosterone dominant. Testosterone is the molecule, the hormone of confidence, of drive, of single-minded focus, of conquest, of confidence. And testosterone dominant human beings tend to walk in this world feeling safe. Estrogen dominant human beings, women, female bodied people, we don't walk in the world safe. We have a multitasking, highly activated reticular activation system that makes us looking around all the time, keeping our eye on everything to make sure that we're safe. And it's a molecule of judgment. It it's judgy to keep us safe. Is that going to hurt me? Is that friend or foe? Is this a safe place for me? But the problem is that it also makes us judgy about everything, including ourselves and how we look. So we actually think we look worse than we do, which also impacts our desire. If we don't feel desirable, or we have issues of self-worth, we don't have enough self-love. These can also impact what we're doing. So once you begin to have compassion for yourself and your partner, once you realize that nobody taught us nothing, we need to go learn it. It's interesting. And this is why thank you all so much for being here today with EllieMD, because most people are so triggered by sexuality, so afraid of it. So a in a very small space around what is okay, what is possible, that if you take 100 people, maybe, and I'm being very generous here, 15 of them will think about their sexuality as a part of their overall maturation and personal development, and that they feel empowered to actually do something about it. You'd think, oh, sex sells, sex everywhere, everybody wants sex. They don't. It's been really quashed in the world as a control mechanism, frankly. And so those of you who are here, you're the fighters. You're what I call the sexual seekers. Those people willing to say, if I learn more, I'll get better. It's all practice. The more I know, the better I get, because that's what it is. So I hope that answered your question.
No, that was wonderful. I've never
Good.
heard it quite said this way. Libido, there's desire, and the difference
Arousal, that's
and
a whole
arousal.
different category. I want to go into that in a minute a little bit more because I think that's huge, especially when we get to PT 141. That's where I want to kind of save the arousal piece
Okay.
because that's what PT 141 is super good for. It's made for that.
Hmm. I love that, but I'm glad you broke it down. There's testosterone, there's estrogen, and both of
We
them
all
play.
have both.
Yes, exactly, and they both play such a critical role in our sense of desire. Now, you mentioned on one of your shows, as I was doing some research, that by extending the sex span, someone can have great sex well into their hundreds. Wow.
Yeah.
So what exactly is sexual health span and how can we extend it all the way into our hundreds?
Yeah. Well, your sex span is the time of the percentage of your life where you are sexually active. And many people think that, okay, well, once I'm 40, I'm going to be decrepit, or 50, I'm going to be, old and I'm not going to want sex anymore. And that's not true at all. If you are healthy, if you eat well, good nutrition, good sleep, and good blood flow, which comes from working out. High intensity interval training and strength training are the two biggest friends you have for extending your sex span. So it's so simple. It's like everything else. Those are the longevity, like the three pillars of longevity. So, the better your mitochondria function, the better you're going to have sex longer. And there are a couple of things. One is this mindset that I talked about earlier, the mindset that I'm not going to give up my sexuality. Not only that, I'm going to keep making it better. I can make it better and better and better. I can just keep learning new skills, new techniques, and having new erotic adventures, trying new toys and tools, doing regenerative therapies, and keep myself in good working order. So that's really the answer, is that it's up to you to safeguard and to support your health with intention. It's intentional pleasure. And we need more pleasure. Pleasure is the antidote to stress. Pleasure is a part of why we're on this earth. And the pleasure with ourselves and the pleasure with our loved, our beloved, and our connection to source, to all of us can come through ecstatic bliss experiences.
Mhm. I love that. We've had tens of thousands of patients now lose tons of weight, 30
I
pounds,
love that.
100 pounds, with either GLP-1 products or different, exercise routines or a combination of different therapies. And that's the number one thing that they report. My sexual desire has gone up. So I wonder, do hormones play a role in that? Once you lose the weight, your hormones adjust. What exactly happens besides, you said blood flow. Well, now there's
Yeah.
better blood flow when you lose the weight. What
Mhm.
other key things happen as you lose weight? And yeah, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah. I don't I don't have the ability right now. I didn't know you were going to ask me that, or I would have read some studies to see about that. No worries. But anytime weight is lifted off your shoulders, you feel lighter, more alive, less dragged down. Your systems work better, your functions work better, you feel better about yourself, and all of those things contribute to improved libido. When part of my focus on working out is the high intensity interval training. So I get that blood pumping, pink in the face, so I get the blood pumping to the edges of my body. The genital structures, a lot of people are very familiar that they would say erectile dysfunction is the canary in the coal mine. You'll notice diminished firmness of penile tissue as an early warning sign for atherosclerosis, which is the fat getting caught in your vascular system and then calcifying so that you get hardening of the arteries. That's a common term for it. And when the way a penis works is so interesting. The blood flows in pretty quickly. Male bodies have what is called, I love this word, fast acting hemodynamics. It even sounds masculine. Hemodynamics, it's like, it sounds like it should wear a cape. I'm hemodynamics man. And what it means is that, and I'll show you some interesting pictures here. So this is a penis, obviously, anatomically, and so here's the penis. This is the suspensory ligament. This is the prostate, the bladder, and this is the testicles. And these inside the penis, it's almost all erectile or spongy tissue. There are 3 spongy tissue chambers in the penis. And the blood flows in and it locks off, it pushes closed and holds the blood in and locks it in. But if you have hardening of the arteries, you have plaque on the penile arteries, you can get the blood in, but it seeps back out. That's called venous leak, and that's the number one type of erectile dysfunction there is. It's the most common. But here's what's very interesting is that women suffer from erectile dysfunction too. There's 2 things I want to tell you. One is that about half, not exactly 50, and everybody's different, but about half of the erectile tissue is inside a man's body, not outside. So double the size of a penis, and it goes down toward his testicles. If I think about that like a banana, and I peel the banana, the fruit of the banana, it's all erectile tissue. It's very, very similar. But then if I take that erectile tissue and instead of banana shape, I curve it up to a point. So it's like a teardrop. That's the same amount of erectile tissue that women have in our vulva. And I want to show it to you because it's so interesting. So here is, you didn't know you were going to get pictures, did you?
I know. Well, I was like, man, there you go. Only half of what you got is exposed. So
I
that
know. That's like a hallelujah moment for 99% of guys. They're like, what? I'm twice as big. I'm gonna double the number. So here's our beautiful vulva. So we have the mons at the top, the outer labia underneath the pubic hair. We've got the clitoral hood, which covers the shaft of the clitoris, the clitoral tip or glands. That's exactly the same as the shaft and glands of the penis. And then here is the inner labia. When you open the inner labia, that inside is called the vestibule, or it's like a porthole, the little vestibule. What's in there is the urethral exit where your pee and your female ejaculation come out, and the introital sphincter, the opening to the vagina, which is a little round muscle. So that's what all of this is. But if I peeled away the top and showed you what's underneath, this is what it looks like inside there. And these blue and turquoise chambers are the blue and turquoise chambers of the penis. Look at that. How come nobody taught you that in school? So here is the clitoral tip, the glands, the shaft, the arms called crura, the legs called vestibular bulbs or bulbs of vestibule. And this is the urethral canal. People colloquially call it a G spot, but it's not a spot, it's a long spongy tube. This is the perineal sponge down here. Perineal sponge, it's right underneath. It's between the vaginal canal and the rectum, a little spongy tissue. And so all of this is our spongy tissue, our teardrop shape. And when women think about their pleasure, they think about the tip of the clitoris. And you've probably all heard of that's just the tip of the iceberg. Well, I just showed you the iceberg. And we have as much erectile tissue volume as our male-bodied partners do. And we need that tissue to get plumped up. Or what happens? It's flaccid. And how many signals is it sending to the brain? Much less. Plump it up. You've got all this surface area. And when you touch it, it feels so much better and sends all those signals to your biggest sex organ. The problem is that for both bodies, as we age, those tissues atrophy, they shrink. So we need to reverse them with things like Gaines wave, penis pumping, vulva pumping, really stimulating new tissue growth, using exosomes, using PRP, even using stem cells. These are the things that, and honestly, taking a nitric oxide supplement is kind of like ground zero. You want to do that. By the time you're 50, you have half the nitric oxide production you used to have when you were 20. And nitric oxide is the gaseous signaling molecule that pumps the blood to your brain when you're doing your work, to your heart when you're working out, or to your glutes or whatever, your quads, or to your genitals when you're beginning arousal. The problem is that women's erectile tissue doesn't have fast-acting hemodynamics. And so it takes him a couple of minutes to achieve an erection, sometimes sooner, because he has nocturnal erections all night long if he's healthy. He wakes up with morning wood. It's very easy for him to fill that tube. It's such a straight shot. But you can think about women's genital structures like an English muffin, where you know how you get an English muffin out of the fridge and you cut it in half and you stick it in the toaster and it pops up and the thing still looks raw. So you have to press it down again. Second time it pops up, it's nice and brown. Okay, good. But then the butter's hard. You cut the butter, you stick it on the muffin and you smush the two pieces together and then you wait until all that butter melts into all those nooks and crannies. That's our genitals as women. We need 20 to 30 minutes to get the full erectile function such that intercourse feels orgasmic to us, oral pleasuring feels good. And so the number one technique that will help you with that is massage, using your hands, your partner giving you massages, or using some of these types of tools. This is the Pulse Queen. I have these at drivedesire.com. Everything I show you will be at drivedesire.com. It uses pulse plate technology. And what it does is it actually sends signals through the skin deep into that erectile tissue to draw the blood into it. And it's wonderful. This one is an alternate one. It's just called the Vibe, believe it or not. It has the simplest name in the world. It's very, very quiet. So if you're living with other people, you've got kids in the house or what have you, so be super stealth. This one is a very, very quiet external vulval vibrator. And what helps is that these really prime the plump and the pump for your pleasure. They're very highly orgasmic tools, which is very nice. The more orgasms you have, the easier your body can get to them the next time. The more frequently you fill up all of that erectile tissue, the easier it is to get to the next time. So that's kind of the use it and lose it piece of this, is you want to keep all those, keep that blood flowing.
But before we get into more techniques, because we want to know, do men and women feel the same sensation when it comes to an orgasm? Do we both achieve orgasm in similar ways? Does it feel the same? I think a lot of women want to know that. No, or women more complex? We have different. I mean, I recently heard you say quantum orgasms. Do men
Yeah.
have the same ability as we do? Can you talk about
Yes.
orgasms a little bit more?
Yes. One of the interesting things is that we have what are called homologous genitals. And that means I'm using a lot of sciencey conversation here because I think my audience is a sciencey audience today. And what homologous means is we have the same parts arranged in a different order. So the clitoral shaft and the clitoral glands are the same as the penile shaft and the penile glands. They're just a slightly different size. And that's so interesting. Although you can improve the size of your clitoris if you're having vanishing clit or hidden clit or diminishing clit, which you do get, many women do get that. You can apply testosterone cream directly to your genital structures, and that will tend to get it meatier again, build back that tissue and sensation. Because when it shrinks, you lose sensation, you lose vascularization because you've lost blood flow to tissue. And so the nerves ride along with the capillaries. And when the capillaries retract, the nerves retract too, and you have difficulty achieving orgasm, sensation loss, and things like that. I have to remember what your question was. Your question was
You men and women,
men and women.
yeah.
Yes, so homologous. So we have the same parts in different order. Our bodies work the same. Masters and Johnson in the 60s said orgasms look like that chart where you go up, 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 up. You have a climax and then it drops off and you have to have a refractory period. That is what the chart looks like for a male ejaculatory orgasm only. We have over 20 kinds of orgasms that our body can have, both penis owners and vulva owners across the spectrum. We can have all 20 kinds. And the 20th one is wild card. There are orgasms I haven't even discovered yet. And we can learn how to have them, because I was talking about that orgasmic activation where you don't feel anything. And then with loving touch and sensation, consistently delivered, you begin to bring that tissue online. The nerve endings, the corpuscles, the mechanoreceptors begin to respond and send signals to the brain. You create new neural pathways. So you can actually orgasmically cross-train to have all different kinds of orgasms. Men can have full body, male, multiple orgasms. The only difference between the two bodies is that men have a P spot, which is the prostate, and females have the G spot, which is the urethral sponge, and stimulating those areas is very, very similar and feels very, very similar for both parties. So once you begin to think, oh, wait, you mean I could have those orgasms, I just haven't yet? Oh, my body's just like everyone else's body, and Susan has written the steps to have them, and I just need to do those things. And I try it a few times and then I'll experience it. Yes. So there are many kinds of orgasms to be had, from coregasms to bellygasms to footgasms. We were talking about that earlier, using the feet as something that's very, very erotic. To expanded or quantum orgasms, which is a stroking technique, to female ejaculation, which all women can do. Just like men urinate and ejaculate out of their urethral canal, out of the tip of their penis, women do that right out of their urethral exit in the vestibule. There's a little muscle at the top that closes so the bladder stays in the urine and the blood flow can recruit down into the Skene's glands. Here's what it looks like. I have a picture. Let's see where it is. This is, okay, remember this little tube that I was telling you about right here? This is what it looks like blown up. And these are the Skene's glands. So your vagina and your urethra recruit liquid from blood plasma. The blood plasma will come down, the liquid will come down into here, prostatic type of fluid, and you'll have a contraction and emit the fluid. Some women do it naturally. For some, it's a learned skill. It's the same in your vagina, where your vagina is not a gland like the prostate is a gland and a muscle. The vagina is only a muscle. And it has a lot of vaginal mucosal lining in it. And when you get turned on and you get the blood flowing into your pelvic bowl and your erectile tissue starts to swell, blood flow is recruited down into the vaginal mucosal lining. It seeps through the lining, and that's where the lubrication comes from. So as your nitric oxide declines, as your hormones decline, the tissue, as you lose estrogen, the tissue in the vagina, the vaginal mucosal lining, thins, which gives you laxity. It makes it feel like it's more open. You lose pelvic musculature as you age, and you have lubrication loss from lack of nitric oxide production. So when you replace hormones, when you do hormone replacement with estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and you also take a supplement for nitric oxide. And by the way, you can eat leafy green vegetables, beetroot, dill, cabbage, all kinds of things. That's what your body converts to nitric oxide through a nitrate to nitrite to nitrate to nitric oxide pathway. We have multiple redundant systems in our body. The problem is that we have less nitrites in our food supply than we ever have with industrial farming. So even if you're eating your veggies your leafy greens every day, it is very hard to keep your nitric stores topped up. So nitric oxide supplementation is helpful in addition to hormone replacement.
Yeah, I recently read even mouthwash diminishes nitric
Yes.
oxide reserves.
Mouthwash and acid blockers, Tums and
Oh my gosh,
all of those things, they wreck that system.
that's what I've heard. Wow. So Susan, you've had your own experience and you're a huge advocate of HRTs. We talked about it
Yeah.
briefly before the call started. Can you share with us your experience with HRTs and which ones should patients take, or what are your thoughts around HRTs? Let's start
Yeah,
there.
sure. Well, I'm kind of an outlier. And sometimes I hesitate to mention this because it infuriates people, which is weird. But people are, people have very strong opinions about things, including hormone replacement. I've been replacing my hormones for a couple decades. In my 40s, I began to replace my progesterone and estrogen. And I use Biest, which is two kinds of estrogen, estriol and estradiol. Estrone is the third major hormone, and that's the one that's the breast cancery one. I don't, no one replaces that. You want to increase your ratio of the two good ones so that the third one is diminished and balance it with progesterone. I personally use intravaginal compounded Biest cream in my vagina. And I actually use it it's in jojoba oil, believe it or not. That's what my compounding pharmacy does. They put it in jojoba oil. I like that because the carrier creams have a lot of petroleum products in them. And if I wouldn't put it in my mouth, I wouldn't put it in my vaginal mucosal lining. Like, what? So I like estrogen, and I also use testosterone. And I also use testosterone. I use a product, another estrogen product. It's called Globilo. It's a Biest cream. It's a vaginal serum, but I actually use this on my face, my neck, my chest, the back of my hands, my forearms, for helping keep my facial skin kind of plumped as well as my vaginal skin. Then I use testosterone on in shea butter on my clitoris to keep it meaty and strong. And that's how I take my testosterone. And I really like to take testosterone because I bodybuild, I strength train, and I also like the fact that one of the things I'm really focused on, this is something that a longevity expert said, that longevity is really the three M's: mitochondria, so cellular health; muscle, so strength, especially big thighs and arms, strong as you can get them. So you sail into your old age very strong; and mindset. And it's those three things that keep you young. So for me, testosterone is very good because it gives me confidence. In addition to making me feel more pleasure, it helps with muscle building and confidence. And I really like how I feel on testosterone. I don't take oxytocin, but many people do. What I do is culture my own homemade yogurt out of Lactobacillus reuteri, and it lasts in the fridge for like a month. And it's what I put in my morning smoothies with my protein and my antioxidants and my collagen and things like that before I go work out. And the Lactobacillus reuteri in my gut is what generates the oxytocin that I get from being held and connecting with my partner. And what I like about oxytocin is that it is what makes you it lowers your cortisol. It helps you sleep, so you have better recovery. So these things are also interrelated. If you've taken antibiotics, you've likely killed off the bacteria that makes oxytocin, and you're probably a low oxytocin generator. When you start filling up with oxytocin, you feel much more you have this ability to love more deeply, to connect your heart more strongly to your partner. And it also makes you annoyed with people less. And in our polarized society, it's a benefit. Now, because I have been doing these things for decades, one of the things that is interesting is that I think I have pretty good just genital function, sex organ function, because I still have my period at 63. So I'm in good shape from taking good care of those things. And this is what annoys a lot of people. They're like, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. Why are you doing? I'm not doing anything. I'm just keeping my hormones topped up. I use Dutch test. I'm tested twice a year for my hormone profiles. I've got a doctor who works with me all the time. And so I still menstruate. And that freaks people out. They're like, why would you want to? It's so horrible. I can't wait till I'm done. I can't wait till this is over. And I'm like, I don't know. I like to menstruate. I feel like it is a part of the signals, they call it the fifth signal, of longevity for me as a woman. So I don't mind it at all. It feels vital and healthy to me. But I'm not telling you what I do to have you do what I do. I'm only telling you what I do so you can factor it into your own decision making for your own life. You do you, and I'll do me.
Well, no, thank you for sharing that. And I'm still in my 30s, and we have a diverse age group. We have, girls and women as young as 20 on our in our program, and we have, perimenopausal, menopausal ones. So at what point should you start hormone replacement therapy? What is your recommendation? How soon should you start in your early 30s, or at what point is there a cutoff? What are your recommendations around that?
I think anytime you have an inkling that your hormones might be imbalanced, you should talk to your doctor and get your testing done. So that could be very young. I mean, there are young women with endometriosis and polycystic ovary syndrome that should be monitoring their hormonal profiles early. Women, as they enter perimenopause, menopause, should be getting baseline tests before they get to perimenopause. Because if you want to do hormone replacement, it's good to know what your optimal numbers are. Because when you take tests from from testing facilities, they're giving you their testing numbers, but where you are and how you feel is what's most important. And that's one of the other reasons why often I prefer and recommend my friends to start on things like creams and patches and oral pills and that type of thing before you move into things like pellets, because you want to be able to titrate. You want to be able to dial it up and dial it down. I was driving down for an appointment a couple of days ago, and I was moving into another lane with my car. And honestly, you guys, I've been married 33 years and my husband does all the driving. I don't even drive that much. I work from my home. And so I'm not a bad driver, but I just don't drive a lot. And I was pulling into a lane, and I another car was merging into the lane exactly, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta let him go." He had a Maserati. I had just a dumpy old car, and it was so funny because I got scared. I felt that ooh kind of scared, and I went, "Oh, I need to up my testosterone." I don't like that feeling. That's the feeling of diminished testosterone, is being scaredy cat, being like a little old scaredy lady. And so the next day I was like, 2 clicks today because it gives me confidence.
I love that you bring that up, because I think so many times, especially as women, postpartum women, right away they put us on the Wellbutrins and the Lexapros, and no one bothers to test our hormones to see
Yeah.
what is really happening. Maybe it's just an imbalance of hormones. And I know for me, I'm on pregnenolone, DHEA, and progesterone, and
Yeah.
seen a huge difference in my mental
Good.
clarity and just the changes that I'm experiencing. So I think it's a great idea, and thank you for the advice that you're giving around checking your hormones. I think it's so important, especially for women. Now let's talk about PT141 and peptides and alternative
Great.
therapies. What Please share with us your experience around PT141.
Generally, I love the category of peptides. I think they are incredibly innovative. I love the amino acid chains for particular functions. They have a very precise construct, which appeals to me. And I've used all kinds. I've used everything from growth hormones to ipamorelin to sermorelin to BP157 to, I mean, just copper peptides, all kinds of peptides for various reasons. And I really like them a lot. And I've had the pleasure of experimenting with both intranasal and injectable PT141. And what I've noticed, it's very interesting because it was actually discovered in Australia because do you know this story about the how PT141 was discovered?
Thought it was a gentleman that was trying to give himself a tan, and then he experienced an increase in libido as a result of it, right? Is that the right story?
It's similar to that. Because the Australians have sunburn problems down there, it's a sunburned country. They were looking for something that would provide protection from sunburns. And the PT-141 works on a pathway of your body called the melanotan pathway. And it's melanin. It's part of the melanin regulation system. And they were messing around with it, and it's kind of got that similar story to Viagra, where they realized, oh, okay, if I take this, I could get tan. I will get tan. And they say we're experimenting with, if I'm tan, how will that affect, the sunburn? But the side effects were that they were getting erections. And that's how this whole thing developed into even things like Addy and Vyleesi, which are now pharmaceutical versions. And it's not necessarily that they're the pharmaceutical version, that they're any different than the peptide. They just have like an injector kit. That's what the patent's actually on, is the injection pen of it, not necessarily just what the peptide is. So that's quite interesting. What I think is the most interesting thing about it is, remember, and I purposefully spent some time talking to you all about erectile tissue and how we have, if I put a woman's erectile tissue in this hand and a man's erectile tissue in this hand, they'd weigh the same and they'd cover my hand. Well, that's blood flow that plumps them up to get those signals of pleasure to the brain. If you asked a man, do you want to have sex flaccid or hard? He'd be like, hard. Flaccid doesn't feel like anything. Yet we women have been having flaccid sex most of our life because it takes 20 minutes of good pleasuring to get us where our guys get in 2 minutes. And so often women have just been rushed to intercourse, and then they wonder why they could take it or leave it after a while, which was kind of my story. What's interesting is that when you want to get an erection, and let's focus on clitoral erections for this particular conversation, that both work, but clitoral erection, you can do it from the outside in or the inside out. If you do it from the inside out, it's called an everted erection. Everted means from the inside out. And you can get that through, there's a system in your body. The system in your body is that your mouth, lips, tongue, throat, tip of nose, sides of neck, ears a little bit, have erectile tissue in them. Your breasts and nipples are on the system and they have erectile tissue. If you pleasure your breasts, they'll swell and the nipples will get bigger and they will create more pleasure. So when you're making love, one of the very best things you can do to get started, to begin to climb that 20-minute arousal ladder, is kissing and breast play. When you do that, you begin to create contractions down in your pelvic bowl that begin to shunt the blood down into all your erectile tissue. And that begins the process of turn on. And PT-141 it feels in my body like I had a hot makeout and breast pleasuring and nipple gasms. That's what PT-141 feels like to me. And a yoni massage. Yoni, Y-O-N-I, is a tantric lovemaking word. And it means all of the women's genital structures all together, all the parts, not the vagina, not the vulva, but everything, the clitoral structures, the whole thing, and her spirit. Her power, her portal, her goddess energy, her connection, her joy. That's what yoni is in the tantric lovemaking world. And so I love that word because it's very inclusive of all the parts. It's not just her vagina did this or her clitoris did this. It's like everything. And yoni massage, whether you're using hands or you're using toys or tools, as I like to call them, that helps you from the outside in. And the kissing, the breast play, the PT-141 helps you from the inside out to get this incredible engorgement, which is erectile function. So one of the things that I think is so neat about PT-141 is that you can isolate it. You can just take it and you can feel that tissue getting more engorged. And it helps you because you're feeling tissue that's getting engorged from the inside out. And you can begin to have, there's a word for understanding what you're feeling in your body. It's called interoception. I was just reading a clinical study where they studied interoception, the ability to feel what's happening inside yourself as one of the keys for women who have more satisfying sex. Women who were more in touch with what they were feeling in their body reported more satisfying sex. And I'm like, well, I could have told you that, but thanks for the study. So what's nice about PT 141 is you can kiss, you can breast pleasure, you can have a yoni massage, and you can take PT 141 and you can just blow that thing up. And then you have the most incredible orgasms from it, which is really, really fun. And the more that you become aware of it, the more you send that information to those neural pathways, the easier it is to replicate it, even if you're not doing PT 141. So think about it as something that helps you and with interoception, identify those deep genital structures so that you can find them again in your felt sense.
Mm. Can you explain what makes PT 141 different from other treatments aimed at enhancing intimacy, libido, sexual pleasure?
Nobody really understands yet how the melanotan pathway works to trigger this arousal. Even the pharmaceutical manufacturers don't know how it works, just that it does work. And it's become FDA approved for hypoactive desire disorder. So that's all the information we have at this time. I can't tell you how it works because nobody knows right now. We don't have the information yet.
Yeah, and what's special about it is that it's approved for women and men, both.
Yeah.
Whereas, other treatments like Viagra, Cialis, they're specifically for men. So it's great. It's a great tool. Thank you for elaborating on that. Well, you mentioned Somorelin, that you take Somorelin and
I
I believe
had,
you
yeah.
take NAD. Does
Yeah.
that help at all with some people are saying that they experience more libido and excitement in the bedroom? Does that help at all?
Well, sermorelin is a precursor to growth hormone, and growth hormone is absolutely fantastic. I would be soaking in it right now if it wasn't so expensive. It's quite expensive to buy growth hormone and to take it because it's really for children who have stunted growth issues of various kinds. But man, growth hormone is a nice thing to take. So activating it with precursors like ipamorelin and sermorelin are very good. My libido is such because I have such satisfying sex and I'm in good shape and I have a lot of dates with my partner every week and things like that, 2, 3 times a week. We're busy. I'm not like a nympho. I really enjoy my pleasure with my partner. We carve out time for it. 7 o'clock tonight, we've got a date. So I don't know that it affected my libido, but I'm, I'm an N of one.
I love that. Well, as we wrap up, Susan, is there anything else you want to leave with our speakers
I
and
brought
anything
something
else you want to share?
for you. Yeah, I brought something for you. This is a little book that I wrote called Hot to Trot 38 Fascinating Facts That Supercharge Your Sex Drive. And because now you know there's libido, desire, and arousal, and you've heard about things like vascularization and nitric oxide and all of these types of things, I thought this would be. Oh, I'm sorry you bought the book. I'm going to give you a download link. If you can cancel it, I'll give you the download link if you want a PDF. Well, you could have the physical copy, but hottotrotbook.com. Would you mind writing that in the chat window for me? Hottotrotbook.com. Grab that as my gift because the 38 fascinating facts that supercharge your sex drive, I think, are, helpful. Some will be review from this conversation. There'll be some things in here we didn't have a chance to get to. So I thought that would be the best thing for you today. And thank you so much for having me. I hope it was not too nerdy. And I'd love to know
Perfect.
in the comments anything that was like the number one thing you learned would be what's most interesting to me is what was your aha moment or the little tidbit or the takeaway or the action item. I just love to read those so much. I'm going to have to read those before we all get off this call because that's what helps me do a good job for you, which is
Oh, I
why
love
I'm
that.
here. So I hope I did. And
And
thank you so much for
drive
having me.
to desire.com. Is there where else can our viewers catch you if they
Yeah,
want,
sure,
they
sure.
follow you?
Yeah, drivedesire.com has a lot of the links, probably everything I've talked about. That's kind of my repository. So people are like, "What's the link?" And it's like, don't worry, they're all here. But if you liked what I had to say and you're enjoying this information, you can sign up for my email newsletter. I send it out twice a week with passionate lovemaking techniques and bedroom communication skills. It's chock full of free information, downloads, ebooks, techniques, all kinds of things at betterlover.com. And you can follow me on Instagram by my name, which is Susan Bratton. And you're welcome. If you have a question for me, you can just reply to any of the Better Lover emails. They go right to my inbox. So if there's something that you want to ask me about that I didn't cover or something I said you didn't understand, feel free to ask me anything and I will get back to you. Your questions make me good at what I do. So it's really my pleasure. So that's betterlover.com. Thank you so much again, Hannah.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Susan, for being here. This was super educational and fun and exciting to talk about. I think we can
Yay.
turn up the heat here. Thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful night, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Susan. Take care.
Thank you, honey.